Welcome to Global View. Joining us today, Congressman Marlin Stutzman, a seasoned legislator and a fourth-generation farmer from Indiana who has dedicated his career to standing up for rural America. He served in both the Indiana House and Senate before being elected to Congress, where he became known for his work on agriculture, fiscal responsibility, and protecting conservative values. As someone who understands firsthand the challenges facing Americans' farmers, Congressman Stutzman has constantly fought for policies that support producers, strengthen food security, and ensure a fair global playing field. This week, he's introducing a new beef bill that directly addresses trade imbalances between the United States and Australia, a major move for American ranchers and the agricultural community. We're honored to welcome him to the show. Congressman Stutzman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Congressman, this week we are introducing the Protect American Beef Act. You mentioned that Australia is exporting beef, including Wagyu, at a 35% discount rate due to currency disparities. How this has impacted the American producer economically and also competitively?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I grew up on a family farm in Northeast Indiana, and about 8 years ago, we bought our first couple head of Wagyu cows. I was introduced to it by a friend of mine, and I tell people that it literally changed my life because it's such a wonderful breed, and of course the taste and texture are just amazing. I could go on and on about the Wagyu breed and the quality that it has, and so it's a higher value product. And there's a lot of farmers across the country that are always trying to find a niche to increase their income and their profits on their farms. I would say that while farming is a very tough industry, it's also one that's very rewarding as well. Just the opportunity to work in nature, and whether it's growing crops or whether it's growing animals. There's so many rewards to agriculture, but there's obviously challenges as well. And this is one that was brought to me by a fellow farmer, a friend of mine, who was very involved with the American Wagyu Association. And the Wagyu breed is, of course, a Japanese treasure. And of course, very well known for the Kobe product, which comes from Kobe region in Japan. And back in the 80s, some of the genetics were sold outside of Japan to Australia, the United States, and some other countries. Well, Australia has done a remarkable job of increasing their production and the volume that they produce, and they then now ship it into the United States. But they do have several advantages, and one of those is the currency imbalance, which many of us would know that we have an imbalance or a difference with us and Canada. But there's also tariffs that they impose on the United States product, where we don't have on the Australian product. And so one of the things that's important to those of us who raise Wagyu beef is that we want to protect the integrity of the product and the integrity of the breed. And there's a lot of folks that are watering down the breed, crossing them. There's crossbreeds, and they're selling it with the Wagyu brand and the Wagyu label, which most people would realize as being a higher value product. And so we feel like the Australians are taking advantage of that, and especially with the tariff and also with the currency difference, that they have a huge advantage to the American producer. And so that's why, with what President Trump has done and imposing tariffs with other countries where there's a difference on a variety of products, we feel like this is an important piece to protect the American producer and to level the playing field. And that's why I introduced the bill, and also believe that it's one that fits in line with President Trump's agenda to make sure that those who we trade with, that it's fair trade as well as free trade.
Well, certainly, Congressman, American beef is the best beef. And I'm from Illinois. I grew up in Southern Illinois and by Champaign, Urbana. And I remember growing up, all the farmland, the beautiful farmland in the Midwest, and how people made their livelihoods off of this land, and how it's the small businesses and the farmlands are the backbone of the American economy. They usually just say it's the small business owners, but no, the farmers not only feed America, but they're the driving force behind the economic growth, I would argue. And I think you
Yeah.
articulated that very well here. So the question I have is, how are your constituents viewing this tariff war between the Trump administration and these foreign governments, some which are allies like Australia that you have introduced this bill, and others which are, let's say, a little more or like a frenemy or so? Do they support the tariffs? Do they think it's going to be beneficial? Do they think that this bill will be part of the strategy of imposing tariffs to create this win situation for the American farmer? Or are they a little pessimistic? What are you reading on the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question, George. And what I would say is that, being from the Midwest, we're known for our niceness, and we often just put our head down and we just do the work, and we don't often complain about the challenges or the things that we feel are unfair. We just go to work and make sure that we do the best that we can for our family and provide for the best products that we can, or produce the best products that we can. And you're right. I growing up in Northeast Indiana, our land was a little more sandy compared to that nice, rich black dirt down in your part of Illinois. And but the American farmer is the most productive, the most efficient farmer in the world. I had the chance to travel a couple of years ago over to Romania, and they have some rich, beautiful farmland. But you see the crops that they grow there are nothing like we raise here in America. And a lot of that's due to government that doesn't support, or they don't, keep crime away from the farmer. They don't keep they've been defrauded. They've, of course, been manipulated. They don't have access to markets. They don't have access to inputs like we do here in America. So we're very fortunate and blessed to have that here in America. But we should never take that for granted. And to support the American farmer is my, one of my top priorities. And as I talk to my farmer friends and community back home, there is some concern about the tariffs, but at the same time, there is a strong belief that Trump has our back and that Trump is putting America first. And so we're willing to, of course, let Trump use the tariffs to level the playing field. But we also know what's going to happen is that with Trump's policies, there's going to be better energy policy. There's going to be better trade policies. There's going to be deregulation. And there's going to be a better tax environment for family farms and small businesses. So there's a lot of trust right now put into President Trump to do what's best for America. And, it's interesting. James Carville just had an article, or he made some comments recently, how the Democrat Party has basically abandoned rural America, and that the Democrat Party owes rural America an apology. And, I would agree with that. And it's important that we have bipartisan support from, both parties to support rural America to make sure that America is strong. But it hasn't been that way. And but we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to work hard and support President Trump in his efforts, because if we know that he's going to make America great again, it's going to benefit rural America.
That's
Very well said.
First and foremost, we're big beef lovers, and it's refreshing to know that there is Wagyu produced at home. So that's definitely aligns with the Trump agenda of putting America first. But going through your legislation proposal, I noticed that you also introduced sunset provisions. So what Australia can do for these duties eventually to be lifted?
Well, what our goal is, of course, is to make sure that the American producer has, a level playing field, to have a fair opportunities. And, we don't mind competing with anybody around the world. Of course, we know Japan does they're one of the best at raising Wagyu beef. But we believe that the American product can be just as superior and meet those same sort of standards. But I think that's what's neat about it. And my friend always talks about how food brings the world together. And there's a lot of truth in that. And who doesn't like to sit around the table enjoying the fruit of our labor with people that we don't know, or they're from another country, and we're getting to know people. And it's a great way to to build camaraderie and friendships. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's just coming back to the making sure that we're all on the same playing field and that the products are meeting the same quality standards that we should all expect. And, Australia has that ability. They raise some incredible beef, but, especially with the Wagyu product, it's easy to cut corners. There's our standard for our operation is to always have 50% Wagyu genetics to be a part of the breed, all the way up to 100% or full blood. But a lot of people, they like to cut corners, and maybe it's 20%. And if you remember, our Arby's was selling a product, the Wagyu steak burger, and a lot of that Wagyu was coming from Australia.
Yeah.
And they had the ability to, sell it into the United States at a cheaper price point, and Arby's was able to sell it, of course, on their menu. It obviously gave the breed a lot of notoriety and more publicity, but at the same point, we want to make sure that the quality, the integrity is there. That way, when folks do have the opportunity to try it, that they see a difference. And so those are our overall arching goals, is to make sure that we protect the integrity and that the quality is number one. And then also just make sure that the price points are on a level playing field so we can all compete with each other.
Congressman, everything you just said makes complete sense to me, and I'm not a farmer. I'm a common sense American person who believes in the private sector and driving economic growth outside of Washington, D.C. And I think that the recipe for doing that is exactly what you just prescribed. The question I have now is that the Democrat Party is in a state of implosion, not introspection, but total and utter free fall. I think they're in the midst of an identity crisis. I think they've gone too far to the left, and now the pendulum is swinging somewhat to the middle. And they've even had the opportunity to popularize the IRS, which I thought was impossible. But they've actually gone out and hollered and screamed after DOGE and the Trump administration fired IRS agents and so many of these other unpopular bureaus in Washington, D.C. So are you getting bipartisan support from the Democrats regarding helping farmers in America? Are they out there to help at all in the Trump administration's attempt to rebalance the trade imbalances, the trade deficit, and to support our farmers? Or are they just obstructing even when it comes to safeguarding our nation's food supplies?
That's a great question, and an issue that I think there has not been a lot of attention paid to. I'll talk about the Farm Bill a little bit, because everybody thinks of the Farm Bill as a bipartisan bill generally, but what they've done is they've married ag policy to the food stamp program. And it used to be that the farm portion of the Farm Bill was about 80% of the Farm Bill, and food stamps and welfare programs were about 20%. Well, that's now flipped, where 80% of the Farm Bill is the food stamp portion, and the farm ag policy portion is about 20%. And so I don't think that the Democrat Party doesn't necessarily obstruct, they leverage. They leverage the American farmer for their programs, for their welfare programs. And I feel like that's where, I've had some differences with the ag community on this, because they generally say, oh, we have to keep this coalition together so we're able to pass a farm bill. Well, why should we just take crumbs? And I'm not asking for more government handouts. I'm actually asking for less government involvement and less government intervention in agriculture. But it's like they're willing to take crumbs to let the Democrats use the farm bill for their big welfare programs. And so I think that's they've leveraged the American farmer. I think they also know that the American people have a lot of respect and love for the American farmer as well. And so to me, I think that we have to take a step back in the ag community and say, look, we actually want less government involved in agriculture. We want government to actually be an advocate for agriculture, focusing on trade. One of the things I'm really excited about is this MAHA movement. And this is where Wagyu products, again, can fit into the MAHA movement, and because it's one of the healthiest beefs you can eat. And so that's where I think the American farmer, and it's my message to my colleagues in the ag community, that we need to step up and say, look, we're going to help make America healthy again, because our health really does start with the food that we eat.
Yes, and on this point, I totally agree that food security and safety is an important point to protect. And mentioning Make America Health Again, how do you look at overall food industry in the United States and the use of hormones and all chemical addition, also in meat, in beef?
Yeah, I grew up walking seed corn fields in northern Indiana and southern Michigan, and the seed corn industry is one I'm very familiar with, and it's a great industry, and it has produced a lot. And I think a lot of the effort over the last several decades was to produce quantity, to make sure that we can feed people. But during that whole process, there has also been points where we don't have the best genetics, or we don't have the best ingredients in our food chain. And I think that's something that we need to take a serious look at now is, okay, we've accomplished quantity, now let's accomplish quality and making sure that the food is healthy. And I think that can happen simultaneously. And again, like I said, that's been my message to the ag community. Let's not let the government, come and tell us how to do it. Let's come to the table and have solutions. And what's a better product to put into the food supply to be a healthier product? I mean, I remember growing up, going to Grandma's house. We always would eat fresh green beans and carrots from her garden, and we ate healthier. And I think that's something that needs to happen again. Too much consolidation has happened in the food supply, especially just, for example, in the beef industry, where about 4 companies control most of the processing in the beef industry. My family also raises chicken, and we raise a high quality product through a company called Miller Poultry, and Whole Foods is one of our bigger customers. And it's just taking better care of the animals and making sure that what the animals are eating is what ends up being the product that we put on our plate at some point. And so I think it's very exciting.
Absolutely.
And of course, we all, it's one of our greatest needs is a good quality meal.
Absolutely.
And I think that the ag community is in a great position to help RFK, President Trump, and the MAHA movement to be sure that the foods that we provide for the American people in the world are the healthiest possible.
Thank you.
Following up on that statement regarding MAHA, what is the community's response to this drive to make food healthier and to go, I guess, less antibiotics and less GMO? Are they inclined to accept this, I guess, almost a government intervention by the MAHA movement, by Secretary Kennedy and by Secretary Rollins? Or do they think that this is a positive element? Because for me, at least, eating healthy is very important to me and to our family, but also it's much more expensive, I would argue. So I don't know how they're viewing those prices. Is that impacting how they're perceiving this drive towards more clean and healthy eating? What are your constituents thinking of this?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, it's kind of a mixed bag, I would say, within the producer community, with the farming community. There's some that say, well, we've always done it like this. Why do we need to change? But where I do actually see people that are willing to change is in the younger population. And it's a small community. Only 2 to 3% of Americans are actually involved in agriculture in one way or the other. So, but the younger community, I think, is taking those challenges and see them as opportunities. And how can we produce food that's healthier for all of us? And I know that's the way my family is. I've got 2 brothers and a sister, all involved in one way or the other. And we want to make sure that what we eat and what we feed our children is healthy. And so I think that rural America has a great opportunity here to be a part of the solution. And also realize that, we have been in this mass production phase for several decades now, which is good. But at the same time, you can't just ignore the statistics, whether it's cancer or whether it's diabetes. There's statistics out there that are showing that Americans are acquiring or have disease that we are at higher numbers than what we have seen in the past. So we can't just turn a blind eye to that. And I think that the rural community is willing to address that and help be a part of the solution. But we're also going to have to work with, our college institutions, our ag schools, and with, of course, government. And I think the RFK is a great voice to have to say, you know what, it's not that we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We actually just want to take a step back and say, what can we do better? And I think we should always be willing to do that. And how can we make and produce a better product that's going to be healthier for all of us?
Excellent point, Congressman. I wanted to shift the conversation to another topic that's very hot today. That's this so-called signal issue that seems to be propagated by the mainstream media everywhere and anywhere they could possibly try to throw some sort of dirt against the Trump administration. You're in Washington, D.C. Obviously, there have been hearings the last couple of days regarding this issue. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a serious issue, or is this just being overblown?
Well, I think it's serious, but I do think it's being overblown by the mainstream media and the Democrats because they haven't had anything other than Jasmine Crockett basically taking over the Democrat Party. And so, this is an attempt to, take out, to undermine President Trump and the administration. It's obviously serious. How did this happen? And I think that they're going to take it more seriously than what anybody else is going to. So it's not like they don't take it seriously. Michael Waltz has taken responsibility, and he's even said himself that, he's taken the blame. Not sure exactly how it happened, but he's going to, make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's what a leader does. If a mistake happens, they take accountability, they take the responsibility. They don't try to deflect. They're not trying to say it's somebody else's fault. But they actually are taking responsibility. So to me, that's a good sign. But I think the Democrats and the media are going to use it as that there's something there, more that's there that isn't. I mean, no war plans were shared within that text. There are obviously, what we did learn out of it shows that our American military is pretty capable of going after the target and being successful. So, maybe a little of insight that was by mistake, but I think also the American people can see our leadership knows how to keep America safe.
I absolutely agree with that. And when you have people like Jasmine Crockett representing a massive segment of the left in America today, you could understand why we have this diametrically different vision and representation of America between both parties today. Obviously, both parties are completely unrecognizable in many facets. I started my career actually working at the Hudson Institute as a young person in Washington, D.C., and most of those people now are persona non grata in the Trump administration because so many of the ideas from the neocons to the endless wars to the unfair trade practices just were proven to be wrong. And America First, I think, is here to stay, and it will be the future of the Republican Party. So my last question to you, Congressman, is that's just simply my opinion. But what is your opinion of where the Republican Party is today and what the future of it is? What are the characteristics of this party moving forward?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, of course, growing up in the 70s and 80s, my first memories of politics were Ronald Reagan, and to see how Ronald Reagan handled himself and handled the world and policy and politics was always the standard for us. And I think many of us didn't expect President Trump to come in and to be so strong, and he was really the person that came in and did what we've been talking about for years on different policy. And there was always kind of this, there was lip service to America First, but the policies didn't line up with that. And I think that's what President Trump has done. And he's shown many of us why America wasn't first. There's a lot of talk about free trade agreements. Well, look what that did to middle America and how our manufacturing went overseas. The talk of tariffs for manufacturing is actually good for the manufacturing industries in my area, especially the steel industry. Protecting our jobs here, there's nothing, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. Let's make sure that America is strong. we are a generous people, and the stronger we are, the more willing we are to help others. And I think that's even the message that we've heard from other nations, is that we need a strong America to be sure that the bad guys don't take over. China is, of course, moving all over the globe and are buying up mineral rights, and they're looking out for themselves. Russia, while they are still one of the top world powers, they've got their issues. But America, we're in a spot where we can continue to be the leader of the free world, but also we need to look out for our people and make sure that America's strong. And we just know that the American people are always going to be willing to help others in need of help, but don't take advantage of us anymore.
Thanks so much for making these points. Those policies should be bipartisan, should be a common goal, both left and right, but for some reason, they are more focused on objecting everything good that comes from conservative side. Where people can follow your work and your legislative proposals?
Yeah, well, I'll just make the comment that Trump derangement syndrome is alive and well in Washington.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, but no, I'd love to have people follow us. We're on X under Rep. Marlin Stutzman. Facebook, we're on the social media channels, Truth Social. And we, of course, always love people to follow and respond, and always appreciate people's comments.
Thank you very much, Congressman. It was an honor to have you on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I think our viewers are really going to enjoy somebody who represents not only the will of the people, but also the backbone of our economy, the farmers, and the type of policies that really will make America great again. So thank you so much for joining the show, and we hope to have you back again.
You're welcome. Thank you.